Hi, thanks for looking in on my very first broadcast of Karma Release. My reason for broadcasting this is to save souls. If I only manage one, it will have been more than worth it. I will tell you why in a later broadcast, if you're interested, that is. I'm just a mere mortal and could no way save souls myself. I'm finding the journey to save my own pretty arduous and complicated, to say the least. But I hope to point you in a direction. I believe that if you follow it, it will have a profoundly positive effect on the destiny of your soul and your entire existence in this realm, but more importantly, those beyond. What I wish to pass on to you is, without doubt, the most important thing you will learn, unless you are already on a serious and true spiritual journey. In which case, you probably wouldn't be watching this. Although I believe it is possible to attain enlightenment with this method in this lifetime, I don't think I've got the right stuff, but perhaps you do. The reason I follow this is because I believe it will be very beneficial in my next rebirth and hopefully get me closer to enlightenment. Since I'm just a mere mortal, forgive me for reading from my notes because I don't want to miss anything out that I wish to divulge in this first broadcast. And besides that, it stops me going off the point and blabbering on about pointless stuff. Why do I call this channel Karma Release? Karma is something you and I have. Otherwise, we would not be here in this realm and on this planet. There is no such thing as good or white karma. Karma is the stuff created by you during this lifetime, but more so in those before, in this realm and those beyond. It's created mainly by selfish and cruel thoughts and actions, brought about by negative emotions such as greed, lust, jealousy, hatred, vanity, anger, and arrogance. Or perhaps the emotions are brought about by the thoughts. I guess it's a chicken and egg thing. Virtue is the opposite and far superior element to karma. Yeah, these are elements that do materially exist in another parallel dimension. Your true soul consists of virtue. Karma cannot penetrate virtue, so encases it instead. The more karma you create, the more encased your virtue, your true soul becomes. You, I, we have all arrived in this realm, this dimension, on this planet, due to the karma we have created. The last stop on the way to oblivion and complete annihilation. We only have this last opportunity in this realm to carry on existence and return to our true selves due to the compassion of divine beings who created this last chance for us. Not to let this chance slip away, we must release ourselves from karma. I will illustrate just how possible this is in later broadcasts, as I will also explain who and what led me to broadcasting Karma Release. Various beings who have created various religions across history and the globe in an attempt to point people in the direction of salvation have been successful only in the most minuscule of ways despite their devoted and righteous attempts. But this can only be expected since we have arrived here due to our misguided attachments. Attachments create the emotions, or vice versa, I just mentioned. Therefore, attachments create karma. But attachments are not just related to things we desire, but also things we fear, such as disease, poverty, death, and misfortune befalling ourselves and our loved ones. We run from what we fear and seek out what we desire. We are constantly looking for refuge from our fears and refuge in security. Whatever that may be to you, maintaining your private jet or managing to pay your rent, becoming the best at whatever you do, or getting the all clear after a cancer treatment. It all boils down to the same things, desire and aversion. This is what makes a normal human being. To find our true selves, we must get rid of these attachments, desire and aversion, and stop being a normal human being and become, shall we say, superhuman, or simply closer to our true selves. I was born in 1962, right in the middle of the Cuban Missile Crisis, coincidentally the last year of the Chinese water tiger, of which this year is. Since the Chinese zodiac covers 60 years, with its 12 animals and 5 elements. Let us hope in the midst of the Russian war with Ukraine that things get resolved as they did back in 1962. I was brought up in relative comfort, as most children of wealthy, capitalistic Western countries are. Born in England to a bookie, nightclub-owning father, my early years were privileged. Private school, horses, and at 17, my first car was a sports car, an MGB GT to be precise for any enthusiasts. I was christened Church of England, as both my parents were. At an early age, I was taught to believe in God, which I did. I remember when I was 8 or 9, my mother berating me for not helping out with housework. She put me on such a guilt trip that after school one day I stopped at the village church and prayed to God to make me help out at home. This seemed to work, since I did not stop vacuum cleaning, washing up and making beds for at least 2 weeks. Divine intervention or self-suggestion? Who knows? We will find out later. I left school at age 16 to work in the family business rather than going on to further education. It was not just laziness that influenced my decision. No, I thought that being involved in the gambling and nightlife business was kind of glamorous and would guarantee the interest of disco-going, pretty young females. This did turn out to be the case. Once involved with the business, I was shocked to learn in just what a financial crisis it was in. My first task of the day was to call the bank to see whatever checks needed to be cleared, and hopefully we could get the money together the same day to clear the checks. But we often failed to do so and bounced the checks. My uncle, the general manager, said it had always been this way. We controlled over 20 betting offices and were involved with various restaurants and night venues, and I was amazed how the operation carried on. My father drove a Rolls Royce and sometimes had a chauffeur, but on more than one occasion ran out of petrol. Although I had abandoned my religious beliefs, I dabbled in Ouija boards and astral projection, from which I had various disturbing and sometimes frightening experiences. I'm sorry if you find this boring, but I need to fill you in on as to how I got to believe in what I do and what a diverse way I got here from where I began. As you can imagine, working in the environment I did, I got involved with many characters and was influenced by them and what they expected of me. Drug dealers, pimps, bouncers and enforcers were part of my everyday life. It was not long before I became involved with them and their businesses. This brought with it a certain amount of notoriety, which some girls found a turn on. I ended up marrying one such girl, a glamour model. Life was exciting, fun and sometimes dangerous. Drink and drugs increasingly fueled my days. It all came to an end when I was 29. The family business went bust, my wife kicked me out, my car was repossessed and I ended up sleeping on my mother's sofa. She had divorced my father many years before. Out of work and broke, I ended up living off government benefits and a few odd jobs and illegal activities. At this stage in my life, I could not see how things could get worse, but I was physically healthy, and this I was thankful for. Despite my meagre income, I had several short-term girlfriends and then got seriously attached to a girl who, at the time of our meeting, was 18 and I was 30. Unable to find work, I joined a government-sponsored computer programming course in Birmingham, since it was something to do and increased benefit payments. After 6 months, I gained the necessary qualifications to apply for a programming job or go to university to study further. After about a year of applying for positions, I was given a 6-month contract which paid peanuts, but that was because they taught us a much sought after skill in a programming language that could only be learned by working for a company that utilized it. After the contract ended, I easily found another job with a company using the same programming language. Although it was a permanent position and not a contract, the money was better because I had the experience in the language. After 18 months there, my then girlfriend of 4 years ditched me. I was devastated and looked for work far away from the village she lived. I ended up with a 6-month contract in Vienna, Austria. This was exceptionally lucrative compared to my previous work, due to the fact there were approximately only about 1,000 experienced contractors of our type worldwide. I lived in a 4-star hotel for the 6-month contract. But then the contract was extended, and kept on being extended. I lived with various girls and sometimes reverted to the hotel until the contract ended due to the Austrian company I worked for cancelling the contract with the Canadian company which contracted me. I went back to England, but was told there was a possibility that the Austrian company might directly contract the team I was in. About a month later, back in the UK, I got a call from my team leader who told me they wanted us back. 2 weeks later, I was back in Vienna, staying at a girlfriend's. This did not last long. After I met a barmaid I fancied and soon moved out and in with a barmaid, who became my second wife. She soon ceased my playboy lifestyle and we married in Mauritius. She was only working in the bar for a friend who owned it. Her main job was teaching, not just children, but students learning how to become teachers. After a few years, my wife wanted to take a holiday touring Tibet. I was at first against the idea, but she got her way, as usual. Women do, yeah. Before the trip, I read that visiting Tibet without knowledge of Buddhism was like going to the Vatican, not knowing that the Roman Catholic Church existed. After some light research, I became engrossed and thought I had found some real meaning to life beyond the material malaise most of us live in. Don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to turn you into Buddhists. I believe Christianity, Islam, Judaism, whichever true religions you can think of are all paths on the way to enlightenment of some kind. The problem is that most people who follow these religions, including Buddhism, do not do it seriously or devotedly enough and therefore gain little from their religion. I then researched Buddhism as much as I could and found it was more of a philosophy than a religion, which made sense to me. You only get what you pay for, you only get out what you put in. In other words, if your character causes you to lean towards a greedy, grasping and selfish way of life, in which you have no idea, never mind intention of giving in any way, whether it be material, emotional, spiritual, then if not already doomed, you are fast on your way to total destruction, because you are just amassing more karma. On the other hand, if you're a charitable, caring and selfless person, then things are looking up for you since you are no longer creating karma for yourself. The great majority of us lie between the two extremes. Whereas in Christianity, you are doomed to burn in hell for eternity if you are bad, or you live out the rest of eternity in heavenly bliss if you are good. Buddhism, on the other hand, states each rebirth will be as comfortable or not, depending on the amount of karma you have accrued or dissipated. This channel is all about dissipating your karma. I hope to have created enough interest for you to view my next broadcast in about a week. Once again, thanks for tuning in and subscribe to get notification of the next broadcast, if you so wish. Bye-bye.